Eagle a few months ago decided to open an office in the Middle East. This is an example how like local groups convince Eagle how to maybe it's not that good idea. And it's funny because it's a well-known organization that in their strategic plan decided to open a Middle East office without asking any of the activists. And after they applied for the fund, the foundation said, dudes, did you ask the local activists? And they said, oops, no, maybe we will do now if you want. And then they came to the Middle East. Of course, it's got shuttled to the Middle East to have a coffee in the weekend time for activists and to talk about the Middle East office. I'm happy that a great work with all the groups in the Middle East convinced Eagle not to open a Middle East office, and maybe it's not the right decision and it's not good for us. And they will open a virtual resource website, whatever, which is really would be useful, but it's a good example how local activists could do some actions.
And this is important because I'm not sure they took that same approach in opening their other offices, but it's about how we center the work that happens on the people it's supposed to benefit, which is just the most basic principle. I wanted to acknowledge Andil though. Andil and I think spent 10 minutes face-to-face, but have been sort of working together for a while. I wanted to point out two things that he's done that are a little bit kind of harder to concretize, because for me, this vision of capacitating work in the Global South, let's acknowledge that there are resource differentials, that there's incredible imaginativeness and vision that we have in the Global South around organizing that's indigenous, and that's much more sophisticated and I think amazing in ways for our realities than anything we could ever import. But there's some core things like money and other kinds of technologies. But there are also forms of analysis and ideology where we can benefit from certain kinds of exchange in helping us think more clearly and more strategically about how people have made change in other places and sort of looking, you know, across time and across geography around what actually makes change. And certainly there have been very active protest movements in North America that have things to teach those of us working on queer liberation in the Global South. And what Andil was able to do was to bring together activists and scholars for a meeting called Sexualities in Conversation that helped propel some of that work both across the Caribbean region, but also between folks who were centered in academies in the North and folks in the Caribbean region itself. And that work continued with the publication of this online journal, the Caribbean Review of Gender Studies, that provided an opportunity to have a Caribbean-based journal engage in some of this discourse that typically doesn't happen in Caribbean publications, and to do so by inviting activists as well, including an activist here in Toronto, Akin Lodger, to participate in some of that exchange of ideas. And so those are two other models around how some of this stuff can work and has worked well.